Hey everyone, it's Duc. In this episode of Code Hangout, let's learn how to create a journal app using core data. Core data is the way that we can save data permanently on disk in iOS. So let's learn how to do this. This episode of Code Hangout you are watching right now is just a replay of my live episode of Code Hangout with our awesome students. I mean that you are awesome too, but I just want you to know that I am talking to my to you and to my students there. So I know that you will enjoy this a lot because you will feel another level of engagement, another level of conversation in this video. So I hope that you will enjoy this episode of Code Hangout. Let me play the replay for you guys. And now, when you go the link right down below, you will see a download project. Okay, just go there. There's the link to my blog, to my personal blog, and I will see you in the link. There will be a download box for you. Just enter your name and email there so that I can send you awesome new trainings, awesome trainings like this every week. And I have my new iOS course for you. So just as a gift for you, just thank you for supporting me record this so that later on we can see the replay of this. Now, what is core data? Core data is a way for us to save data permanently on disk. Okay, it means that once we save it to core data and then we close the app, then we come back and the data is just there. It's maybe on the hard disk, or maybe sometimes it is in memory, okay, or even fancier, it is in iCloud. Okay, core data is also a very fast way to iCloud. Now we will talk all about that in more details maybe in later episodes. Okay, next, core data is an advanced iOS framework, and in this advanced work, I mean that it has a very steep learning curve. The curve to learn core data is quite steep. It's quite hard to learn core data because, to be honest, the first time I ever learned core data, and really I am still learning core data. Core data is still very hard for me to understand sometimes. I didn't understand everything in core data. If I do, then I will not teach you guys because I want to teach you guys because it's like I just get new to core data for a while now, and I think that the thing I just learned, it is fresh in my mind. So I want to give you guys some of the perspective while I learn core data. Alright, and because it has a very steep learning curve, as I tell you, I am getting some hard in my own projects, with my personal project or my courses at Developers Academy, or my programs, my projects with my clients. I still have some very difficulties, really hard to learn core data, but we will get you there. We will learn together, okay? And this one, we will just learn very just the surface of core data, but we will try to do it we will try to cover as many as possible because we have about 1 hour here together. And again, core data is a fast track to iCloud or CloudKit. Now, if you don't know about it, Apple also have something called iCloud. It is something allows you to store data not only on the phone but also on Apple server called iCloud. And core data is super fast and efficient, and it's smart, and it's very powerful framework. So if you are looking at creating an app like the to-do list app, an app that edits some text like Microsoft Word or Pages, these kind of app, Evernote, or something that needs to store data on the device, like really large data, goes for core data. Okay. Outside of core data, there are a lot of things to save data on disk, like NS user default. But NS user default is most of the time it's just for preferences savings, not for some heavy things like images, videos, or some users' data. Okay, core data is the way to go for that. So let's talk more about core data. Core data is an object graph management and persistence framework. That is the definition from Apple documentation. And really, when I just read this one, it doesn't make any sense for me. So I know that maybe it doesn't make any sense for you. So let's just get into it. Okay, it means that core data is not a relational database. Core data doesn't have tables or rows. It's just we will work with core data in terms of objects that we create in core data. Since we know about objects like Swift objects, it will be very safe and secure and very fast for us to use on. Okay, and I have to say this for you, that during this live webcast, I will skip some of the details about core data, like the things about core data stack. All of these details we will skip because we just have like about 1 hour here together. So, and this app we're building is just an example of using core data. And of course, I don't want to throw a bunch of stuff at you, so we will just skip some of the details, okay? And then as we move along the course, then I will show you about that. So the first thing I want to show you is how to model data using the data model editor in core data, okay? So I will go back into the starter project. For you guys who are watching me live now, just hold on, just post your questions, just ask me anything on YouTube live, okay? And then for a moment, I will come back to your live chat role over there, and then I will answer as much questions as possible. Okay, just support each other there, all right? Because I want to like spend as much, just deliver as much as I can in this webcast. Now this is the starter project I already create for you because I build the UI for you guys. I just some very simple stuff, like this is the date formatter. I downloaded it from a open source library. It allows us to have something like 7 days ago posted, okay? Those things we don't have to talk about in this episode. So now the first thing is this starter project. It is not the same as most of other projects that when we create, because if you go and have a look at the app delegate, now here's our app delegate. When you go here, we still have a bunch of code, a bunch of delegate methods of the application, UI application, right? But below here, there's a mark of core data stack. What it does here is, as I tell you, this is the part that I will skip because there are a lot of things here and I cannot cover it in just one single webcast. But just keep in mind right now that all the videos right here for us is the code that generated from Xcode that lays the foundation for us, have some objects for us to use core data, okay? Now if you don't know how to create this project, it's very simple. Just go to new and we will just add a new project, okay? And just show you guys. And when we create a new project, single view, and you will see on this one, there will be an option to select the use core data. Okay, that is for the start. And as I am developing my core data program in Developers Academy, we will, for the first few projects, we'll use the same thing. We'll use the same project to start with, all right? Oh gosh, there's UPS bus over there, so just hold on there, okay? I will close the door. All right. Okay, so we are talking about this. All of these code is just lays the foundation for us to use, all right? And I will talk a little bit about these as we move on. The next thing is our main.storyboard. We just have 3 views over here. The first one is a navigation controller, and then inside here we have a root view controller, is a UI tail view controller displaying a bunch of entries. And then the last one is the compose view controller. It is just a simple text view with a bar button called done. When you click onto that, it goes back into the entries post. All right. So let's learn how to create a data model. The data model in core data. When you look at this, I hope that you are still doing this with me. Okay, just do follow along with me. In here, we'll click the journal.xc data model ID, okay, the model D. What it means here is core data, it is not like a relational database. Like if you guys are using SQLite or those things, we have a bunch of tables, right? But in core data, we will specify what is in our object. Okay, it's not like we have a bunch of tables, but now we have a bunch of objects or a bunch of entities. All right, and then from entities we'll have relationships, we'll have attributes, we'll have properties. Okay, now let's do this, and then I will tell you more about that. The first thing is we will create an entity. Okay, move down below here, we'll click this button. And when we click this button over here, we will have an entity. And for this entity, I will name this entry. All right. What this entity is about is in core data model. It means it represents like an object, like a class in the world of object-oriented programming world, not like the database, the core data world. Okay. The object-oriented world, it is an object, a class. All right, it's like the blueprint. The class is just like a blueprint describing on the properties, on the methods of an object, right? So an entity is just like a class that describes some properties, some maybe pointers, some references. Okay, so it means that in entity or in a class there is properties. And yes, we do have properties. It's called an attribute. Over here, we will see we have attribute. And right now, for a journal entry, there are a lot of things. Maybe we have the body text. We have the created date, right? We have the date. Or maybe if we have the author, we have the images, we have the sound, we have a bunch of things. But now I just want to show you these tools, and then as we move along, we'll use more complicated things. Okay, in this demo, let's just have the first thing is a created at property or an attribute. And then the next thing is the body text. The body text, okay? So we have these two attributes. The first one is the body text, and the second one is the created at. Okay. Now, as soon as we do that, on the status bar right here, we'll see we have two arrows. And if you click onto this, we have entry.created at must have a defined type. Okay, this is a good sign because it means that in core data, okay, what we're doing here is typed a static typed properties. Okay, it means that down along the road we can use Swift syntax like classes, types to be safe to use those typing syntax so that we can our code is very secure, right? So in here we have the body text. Now what is the body text? Well, body text is a sequence of characters, right? So it means that there's a string, so we can click into this drop down menu and we have the string here. And the created at, we have the date, right? Now if you look at this drop down, we also have binary data. Binary data is images. Just think about images in the form of data. Okay, there are also things like transformable. Okay, those things and other float, double integer, those things we will talk about as we move along. Okay, so then we have our data model. That's good. Okay, now that's it. Believe it or not, that we just create our data model. Okay, again, I just want to recap. We have entity. It is a class in core data, or in the world of database, we have table. An attribute inside the entity, it is like a property in a class or a column in table. We will have something called a relationship. A relationship is a reference from one class to the other, okay, or from one entity to the other. Now let's say we are modeling a photo browser app, okay? In the photo browser app, we have an entity called a photo. And we have another entity called a photographer, okay? The photographer and the photo. So it means that there's a relationship between these two entities. Okay, just hold on with me because I just want these information are so important. You must know all of this information before we write code, because every single line of code that we are going to write in core data is just a bunch of new classes and a bunch of new frameworks. So that's why I spend the time with you here today on the live webcast to introduce you to these concepts. All right. Now we're talking about the photo and the photographer. The photographer. These relationships, right? They have two relationships. There are two kinds of relationship in core data. The first one is a one-to-one relationship. It means that a photo has only or is only taken by one photographer. Okay, and the photographer can take as many photos as possible. So we would say that the photo has a one-to-one relationship to the photographer, and the photographer has a one-to-many relationship with the photos. All right, I hope that makes sense. Let me check it out to our live chat to see if oh, I'm sorry guys, I think there's an error occurred in my streaming. Gosh. So this is what will happen in live streaming. Okay, can you hear me? Okay, so now I'll just continue and then I will post this the replay of this episode to my channel for you guys, okay, on my blog. All right, so let's get into some code, some code. We just learned about modeling data in core data. All right, so our journal app with core data, we just learned about model data. In data model, we still have adding new entries, fetch entries, edit entries, and delete the entries. So let's learn how to create objects in core data, how to create an entry inside our journal app. Now, all of the objects in core data, mostly we will deal on something called a managed object context. A managed object context, okay? Imagine it is a memory scratch pad. Okay, it is like a notepad of memory. It means that we can add objects there, we can delete objects there, we can save objects, we can modify the objects to core data. It's like the intermediary between us, the users of core data, and the core data infrastructure itself. And all the objects in core data mostly is NS managed object. Okay, so let's talk about the NS managed object context. Okay, we will have a managed object context from our app delegate. If you go to our app delegate over here, app delegate.swift, okay, we have something called, just scroll right down, we have something called a managed object context. Okay, as I tell you, it is a in-memory scratch pad. Okay, we can put objects there. That's what we will learn in a few minutes. We will delete object, we will edit object, we'll save object, okay? And then let's say we are going to edit some object or add new objects, okay? The way we'll do this is just throwing some entries into that, okay? We're just throwing some NS managed objects into that. And inside each NS managed object, it is modeled. Now here is the time that everything will links back together. Everything in the entry, it is modeled exactly like the thing that we just modeled over here in the journal.exe data model. Okay, it also has created add body text on these things. Okay, so all right, so let's learn how to add a new entry to core data. Before we do that, we do have something to just get along well with the starter project. So I will open up the Compose View Controller. Inside the Compose View Controller, the first thing you will need to do is import core data into our project. So I import core data here. Okay. Just want to make sure that our live stream is back. Is it back? Let me type in the chat for you guys. All right, can you see that? All right, I see some response here. Good. Okay, now let's the first thing is import core data. This is going to be a very long episode of Code Hangout. Just follow me, okay? First, we will import core data into our project. And the second one is inside this class, I will declare two properties. The first one is yet our manage object context. And this manage object context, it is of type NS manage object context. Okay. And the next one is an entry that we are editing. Now remember that this is the Compose View Controller class. It means that first we can create new entry here, or we will delete the entry. Okay. We can add new entries or we will delete entries. Actually, I will pause my Dropbox here so that it will not interfere the network. Okay, so we have the entry, and guess what? The entry is of type NS manage object, and I'm using explicitly unwrapping optional over here so that we don't have to initialize these because we really don't know if it is initialized. Alright, so now as I tell you that every time you want to edit object, you want to create new object, you want to modify object, or you want to save everything, you have to go through the manage object context over here. But we just declared, right? We don't know where it is, how to create that, right? How we can get that is the question right now. And recall that in the app delegate, I tell you that it already creates for us. It already write these code for us to create these things, right? So our job right now is just to somehow use the manage object context created from the app delegate, and we will do that inside our view did load over here. So below this line, I will do let app delegate equals UI application dot shared application dot delegate as a app delegate. Okay, very straightforward, right? We get the application from the UI application and get that delegate, which is this guy, and then cast it as the delegate. And then we will have our self.manage object context to be the app delegate dot manage object context. This is one of very popular way the way that you can get the manage object context from the delegate, the app delegate, to our class. Okay, very, very common way to do this. Now, one of the skill in core data is how you can pass the manage object context all around your project. That is, believe me, that is a skill. All right, so just get along. I know that for you guys who are just new to core data, it's hard. There's a bunch of stuff, right? It has manage object context, it has manage object, as the data model. It's just the reason why I just go back and back, explain everything for you guys is that when I just first learn it, it's so hard for me. I remember, like, I think for more than 1 year ago, when I just first get contact with, just expose myself with more than 1 year ago with core data, it's so hard. It's just freaking hard, right? So just get along well with me, and then just watch, just rewind and watch and see the explanation, all right? So next, after we get this object context, because the class we're dealing with is this entry alone, right? It's this entry itself. So we want to check if the entry is nil. It's not nil. If this entry is not nil, it means that there's an entry passed into this class, and we will need to edit it, right? So I will call this method out, and then I will set the self.textView.text to be the text of the entry, to be the body text of the entry. And how we can do that? As it turns out that the entry is an NSManage object, right? So we can get the body text. Remember, our body text is in this body text, right? And we can get this body text from the entry very easily using key value coding, alright? And we can do entry.value for key, and the key here is body text, and we'll cast it as a string. Now, for some experienced developer out there, this entry.value for key is not safe at all. Okay, and really, honestly, as I edit this episode, I mistyped it all the time. Body text body, I don't know. Now that's why in the next step, not in this episode, but like as we move along, I will show you how we can subclass NSManage object, and we can use Swift classes static typing syntax in the NSManage object. Okay, we'll learn that, but let's just get the basics, the fundamentals down. Okay, otherwise it means that this entry is nil. If it is nil, then there is no entry. Okay, it means that we just hit the compose button. So we want to create a new one. So we'll set the text field.text to be this guy. Cool. Okay, so I hope that you follow along. Next, let's see this done the click. Okay, so again, I want to check if the entry is not nil. If it is not nil, then we just update this entry. We just want to update some text in the entry. So I will call this method self.updateEntry, and it is the method that we will learn to write func update entries. Okay, in this update entry, we will learn how to edit an NSManage object and save it back to core data. Okay, so otherwise, if this is nil, if it is nil, then we want to check if the textView.text is not the empty string. Okay, it means that we haven't created an entry yet, and the user is just typing in a bunch of text. Then we want to self.createNewEntry. Okay, and this also is another method that we will learn to write func create new entry below here. Cool. So either way, if the entry isn't been created yet, or if already created, then we will just go back into the entries table view controller, self.navigationController.pop to root view controller, and the method is true. So that is the way that we can go back into our root view controller. Okay. So what we were talking about here is create the new entry. Let's learn how to create this new entry. I will put it here so you can see. Now, the first thing we will learn, the first thing we will need to create a new entry is the entry entity. Okay, the entity of the entry itself. Why is that entity? Just rewind here. The entity is this entity over here. Okay, this entity over here. Now remember, the model, the data model, is something that shapes whether what methods, what properties that we'll need to put inside that entries so that core data can work, right? So first, we'll need to get that entity. Now, the way that we'll deal with, the way that we'll have that entity is through something called an NS entity description. Okay, I'll just write here and then I will explain it. Let entry entity is an NS entity description dot entity for name, and the name here is entry. In manage object context, again we have to specify the manage object context, and that is our self.manage object context. Okay, and then now what is this entity description? It is this entity description. It is the link or the reference between our data model and the manage object itself. Okay, right here, from the link from this guy that we created to the object, to this entry that we are going to create. Okay, and then core data will does its magic. Next, I will do the let entry object to be the NS manage object and NS manage object, and then we have the entity. The entity here is this entry entity. Insert into manage object context, and the manage object context here is manage object context. Alright, now this method is the way. First we will create a new NS manage object, and then we will insert that into the manage object context. Okay, this here I will have to ungrab it right here. Okay, see, we have to ungrab it. Cool. So that is the way. We will have the entity, and then we'll insert new NS manage object into the manage object context. And then our next job is to configure the entry object. So go to entry object dot set the value. The value here, first I want to set the body text. Self.text view.text. The body text for the key of body text. I have to warn you is that really be careful in this. Okay, later on if you mistype this, right, there will be an error, and we say something like core data doesn't recognize an key value coding of body text or body text or something. Okay, then maybe we'll have time, we will change the text to try some error. Okay, next we will do entry object dot set the value of NS date, which is our current date and time. Oops. For the key of created at. Okay, and then our last job is to commit the saved into the manage object context. I will do try manage object context dot save. Okay, and this save method, it will throw us an error. Alright, so we'll do catch let error as an NS error. NS error. Alright, and then I will just print could not save the new entry error dot description over here. Boom. Okay, so that's the way that we will create a new entry. It's that simple. Okay, so that's the way we will create a new entry. Maybe I will just put it here for you guys to see. Alright, now our next job is we will learn how to fetch data into our table view. Okay, we learn add entries. Now we will learn how to fetch entries from core data to our table view. Now, how we can do that? First, we will have to import the core data, right? And then we'll use something called an NS fetch request. So let's do this. Open up the entries table view controller. Below here, I will just import. There's no point. Import core data here. Okay. And as you can imagine, a table view must have a data source for us to fetch things into that data source, and then shows that data source, right? So our data source here is var. It is an array of entries. So entry, and it is an array of NS manage object like this, right? And recall, everything we do with core data, mostly we'll do it via the NS manage object context, right? So we have the var manage object context, which is our NS manage object context, and explicitly ungrab that. Okay, so now our first job is always how we can get this manage object context, right? So I want you to pause the video here, comes back into the Compose View Controller and try to do it yourself. How we can get the manage object context from the app delegate to this class, because I'm doing this live here, so here's the way I do it. First, we still have the app delegates to be the UI application, shared application, app delegate, delegate as an app delegate, right? And then I will set the manage object context to be the app delegate dot manage object context, manage object context, just like that. Okay, I hope you get that. So next, let's learn how to fetch these entries. I will scroll down here and we'll have the function called fetch entries. I just like to, whenever we deal with like networking or fetching stuff, I want to have a separate method. Okay, because we know that we maybe we'll use this fetch entries a lot of time. So first, we'll need to have the fetch request, and this is an instance of the NS fetch request. And this fetch request, it is built right into the core data, and we can specify an entity name, and we want to find all the entries from the entity called entry. Okay, and then now there are a lot of things getting involved in this fetch request. We can do like sorting those using sort descriptors, or we can we can filter. We can have the we can sort, we can filter, we can sort. All right. Now I just don't want to like go really deep into this, so we will talk about that in another chance. Okay. In this case, I just want to fetch all of the entries into our data source, and the way we do that is we will have the let entry object. Okay, entry object. Okay, we will tell the manage object context to execute this fetch request. Execute fetch request. Fetch request. All right. So we will demand the manage object context to execute this fetch request. I hope that you don't see that. I just see fetch request. Okay. Of course, my English is not my first tongue, my mother language, so just bear with me. All right. I hope that this makes sense. All it does here is the manage object context. It will execute this fetch request, goes into the model, goes into the data store, it goes into the store, and then fetch everything back to us, fetch all the entries back to us. Okay. Next, I will just have the self entries to be the entry object. Okay. Do this so that we have separate ones. Next, because this do and try, it throws some error. So I will have let error as an NS error. Okay, and then print. I will just print it out. Could not fetch entries with the error here, and error.userinfo, so that we have more information. What's this error over here? Let's just build. Oh, execute fetch request. Okay, now what it does here is tells us is that the NS manage object context, when the fetch execute the fetch request, it will return an array of any object. So over here, very simple, I will just cast it as an array of NS manage object over here. Okay, and then this should go away. Cool. All right. Now after we fetch, we have these entries in our hand in our local data source. Then we will just self.tableview.reload data, so we can reload data with new entries, right? And then guess what? I will clone this get entries inside the view will appear self.fetch entries, because what if we edit it in the entries table view, we edit it, and then when we come back, if we clone it in the view.load, it will only be cloned once, right? So I want to clone it multiple times. Cool. All right, next. Now our job left is just to populate these entries, these self.entries into our table view. So let's do this. First, number of sections in table view, it is 1. Okay. Next, number of rows in section, it is self.entries.count. Right, that's straightforward. Next, table view self or row at index path. These things should be very simple. Now, if you are not familiar with table view yet, please do me a favor, pause this video, goes into my I don't know, on my channel there will be some videos, there's some series on table view for you guys, or you can check out Total iOS Blueprint. Just go to ductran.co and check out Total iOS Blueprint. Okay, you must master those fundamentals in iOS first, and then goes into details, because I know that a lot of you who are here watching this live with me or watching this replay, okay, you just want to build that Evernote app, or you just want to build that to-do list app. Okay, I get that. I was there too, but just believe me, to believe in someone who has been training thousands of developers. Okay, I got this journey, I got your struggles. I know it's hard sometimes. I just want to learn the new stuff. But the ones who are successful, who really ship apps, they got one step by one. Just take baby steps. Okay, so if you are not familiar with table view, please do me a favor, pause the video, find the table view series on my channel on YouTube, or just ductran.co. Go there and just check it out. Okay. All right. So that's a little talk for you guys. Now we will need to populate this cell, table view cell, right? So we have the entry to be entry subindex path dot row, right? And then we will do self.text label. Okay, the text. Remember that what we're doing here is a details subtitle, right? So the title will be some of the body text, and the subtitle will be the date of the entry, equals to entry.value for key. The key here is body text, and we'll cast it as a string. Okay. Next, I want to have another one called the date of the entry. Let entry date to be entry.value for key and created at, and we'll cast it as an NS date. Okay. Now, next I will use this open source library so that we can convert from a date to a string. Okay, and then we have that thing 7 days ago, 1 week ago, or just now, okay, or just recently. Cell.detail text label.text to be the date, time formatted as time ago, and entry date. Okay, this is date, time formatted as entry as time ago. It is not a new method that in UIKit. It is a method in this class, right? From Julian on GitHub. Okay. All right. So that should be good. So now let's build and run to see how it looks like. Finally. Here we go. So here's how it runs. Boom. All right, see, because I already have some entries in here. So let's say I want to edit this. Now the reason why we didn't have this method, cannot put it there, because we haven't implemented it yet. Okay, this IB action. So let's implement it very quickly. Pause it here. Okay, here we go. The composed click. The composed click, I will just call self.perform segue with identifier, and is show composer, and the sender is nil. Okay, and let's run it again to see how it looks like. You guys who are watching me live here, just post your question and then I will come back later on. Okay, it's just that while I'm teaching this, like, it will be very distracted for me if I just go and watch your questions. I will go back and see your questions. Okay, click onto here. I hope they will not crash. All right, it's just a little bit slow. Now let's do something like, hey there, I love cats. Yes, I love cats. And then click done. Where's that? Boom. Hi. Hey there, I love cats. Just now is the time that we can convert from our created ad. Alright. Now, I just want to make sure that it really persists or save it there in our app. So I will cancel this one. Open it once again. Okay, here you go. And then I will hit the home button twice, or Command Shift H twice, and then close that. Open it once again. Boom. Hey there, I love cats. Alright. Cool. Love that. Okay. So next we'll learn how to, this is fetch entries from core data, report error, populate the fetch result to the UI. So that is model data, new entries, fetch entries, and now edit entries from core data, and then delete the entries. Okay, so how we can edit the entries from core data? The first one is, we already have the entry, right? We already have the entry in the composed view controller, that local one. So it means that when we click onto this, one, we want to segue and pass that entry into our composed view controller, and then we will edit it there. Okay, so it will be dealing with a mark of UI table view delegates. Now this is UI table view delegate. We will need to do table view, did select row and index path. I will scroll down and find that. Let's select row and index path over here. Okay, here we go. So now first I will do self.tailview.deselect row and index path, so that we don't have that grayish thing all the time. Index path emitted is true. Okay, and then we have let entry. The entry is the entry that we select with at this index path, right? And this index path. Self.entry, so index path, a row. Okay, and then I will just perform the segue. Self.perform segue with identifier, show entry. I'm sorry, show composer. It is specified in storyboard. And the sender here, guess what? I will pass in this entry. Again, if you are not familiar with this kind of code, pause it. Goes into Todo iOS Blueprint. I know that a lot of you are watching here is a member of Todo iOS Blueprint or Socialize Your Apps. Just go there, watch each video, and then we'll get you there. Alright? So next, let's implement this prepare for segue by using so that we can pass this entry over the composed view controller. Remember, we're learning how to edit that entry. So we'll do if segue.identifier, if it is the show composer, then we'll do let compose view controller to be segue.destination view controller. and we'll cast it down as a compose view controller. Okay. Next, we will have that compose view controller dot entry to be the sender as a NS manage object. Okay, because we are dealing with NS manage object here. Now, one thing, pay attention here. It is the sender here is what is passed into this prepare for segue by the result of calling self.perform segue with identifier, right? But now look at this. I use as question mark. Okay, I don't ungrab it. I don't force. What is that? Force casting it. Okay, I just want to use it as an optional because maybe it is nil. And yes, when we click the composed click, okay, when the composed click, we want to have a new entry. We just have the sender as nil. It is not the entry. It is not edit an entry. Okay, so that should explain why it is an as question mark. All right. So our job next is just goes back into this compose view controller. Now we have this entry, right? We have the entry right now, and then we'll learn how to edit the object. Okay. So edit the object goes right down here. Update the entry. First, do we need the... Now look back at this. I'm so excited for this. Look back this create new entry. First we have the entry entity, and then we have the entry object. Okay, and then we do a bunch of other things, right? Now, do we need, the question is, do we need the entry entity again? Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No, we don't need this entry entity again because we do not create a new one. Whenever we create a new one, then we'll need to have that entry entity, okay, that entity description, so that we know which entity does this object that we are going to create, right? But now, because we just update or we edit this entry, it means that this entry is not nil and is not nil. It's already there. So we just have to edit that. So first I will have entry, we'll have set value. The value here is self.text view.text. For the key here is body text. Okay, and then entry.set value. The value here is ns date. Okay, for the key of created at. Oops, here we go. Cool. Next, we will have to save this back, because if we just do this, we just do it locally in this entry. We haven't tell core data to save it. So let's save it. Do try manage object context dot save. Okay, catch let error as an ns error, and then we just print here could not save, and we have the error, right? And do you see this saving stuff? It is we write like twice or thrice already. Okay, that's what in the next few modules we will learn how to put out all of these code. Okay, and then we don't have to write all of these code like all over again. Cool. All right, believe it or not, that's it. Let me run the project to see how it looks like. Here we go. Let's edit this son of a gun. Okay, so let's edit this guy. Click there. Okay, boom, it's already populated. So let's close here. How about I will just copy some text here? No, I can't do. So hello world, this is developers community. Okay, done. Boom, it's already updated, and it is updated just now. Cool. All right, wow, I'm so excited now, because this is so powerful. This is so powerful. You cannot imagine what you can do more with this. Okay, update an entry is that simple. Next, how we can add new entries, fetch entries, edit entries, and then how we can delete entries from core data. That is our last topic here. And then after this one, I will go to our chat role and then answer your questions. Okay? So delete the entries. All right, here we go. Now delete the entries. All we have to do is goes back into our entries tail view controller. What we want to do is having this. We can scroll to the left to show that little delete button. Click on that, and then we delete it. Right? So I will do the tail view delegate over here. First, we will have to tell the tail view that we can edit this. So we will do tail view can edit row and index path. Okay, because we want to edit everything, so we just return true over here. All right, so let's run to see what this method does. Run it now. We can scroll it like this. No, I just click it. Just wait a little bit. Okay, goes back here. Scroll it and down. Okay, let me see. Override can edit row and index path. Okay. Right, we did it right. Now, I think we still have to do one more thing. It is the tail view commit editing style. So tail view. Where is that? Commit editing style over here. So that in this one, okay, in this one, we will delete it. We will delete this not only in the data store, in the data source, but also in core data. So first, I want to check if editing style is delete, not delegate, delete. Okay, if it is delete, then we have the entry. The entry here is self.entry sub-index path.row. Alright, and then we will delete this entry of the manage object context. Self.manage object context dot delete object, and the object here is entry. Okay, and then we'll also have to self.entries, which is our local data source, dot remove an index path at index, and the index here is index path dot row. Okay, now what's next? Well, there are two things next. The first thing is we'll have to tell the tail view UI graphically to throwing that thing away, that entry away. The bad way to do that is self.tailview.reload data. This is the bad way because it will just make everything like flash. It just reload everything. If the user scroll way down, then it's just reload everything, and he or she is back to the top again and will throw the bunch against the wall. Okay, the good way to do this is, and with some artistic animation, is tail view dot delete. Now, why do I just always delegate? Delete rows at index paths. Index path here, we have to specify an array of index path. So index path, make it an array. Animation is automatic. Alright. And then this is not enough because we have to save the manage object context. Do self.manage object context dot save. Okay, and again this is throwing an error, so we have to mark it try, and then we'll catch let error as an ns error. Okay, and then I will print this guy cannot delete object, and then error. Okay, error dot localize description, something like that. Okay, and boom, we are good to go. So let's run it again, and I think that we can do it now. If we still cannot, then let's debug it together. Okay, here we go. Boom. Yes. Drag it to the left. Delete it, right? And now let's cancel this one and open it once again. And now we just have 2. Okay, or we can close it once for good and then opens it back and we just have 2. Okay, or we can now have some hello world and done. Alright, that's it for this episode of Code Hangout. As always, I hope that you will go back into your I hope that you enjoy this episode and go back to your inbox right now, because I have my new iOS course, my new training for you guys. Open up your email right now and goes into there. There will be a surprise for you. In the next few days, I will send you even more trainings. In the next few weeks, I will send you even greater trainings and resources. Until next time, I see you in the next episode of Code Hangouts. Go out there every single day of your life. Learn new things, craft your ideas, and contribute to the world. I see you.